Brittney Griner didn't just retire from the WNBA. She vanished from it. No farewell tour, no jersey tributes, no slow-motion highlight reels of her sky-high dunks. Just a sudden press release, a vague apology, and then silence. But let's rewind for a second, because this isn't just a story about a veteran stepping away from a game. If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe. It's a meltdown, a messy, very public unraveling that ended one of the most controversial careers in women's basketball with a bang loud enough to rattle the entire league. At the center of it all, Caitlin Clark, the league's new golden girl. The face of every WNBA ad, the headline on every sports page, and the clear symbol of the league's pivot toward a younger, cleaner, more marketable future. Griner, on the other hand, she went from icon to cautionary tale in record time, and not just because her game was slipping. Oh no, this wasn't just about aging knees or fewer points on the board. This was about reputation. A career-ending cocktail of bitterness, public outbursts, and one explosive, racially charged moment caught on camera that no PR team on earth could clean up. The footage? Brutal. Griner getting physical with Clark mid-game. The audio? Worse. A verbal takedown that crossed every imaginable line and set social media on fire. And when the backlash came, it came fast. Sponsors pulled away. Fans turned. Teammates went silent. And before anyone could even say suspension, Griner had gone full damage control mode, apologizing, streaming on Twitch, pretending everything was fine, right before announcing she was done. Retired. Effective immediately. Now, you can call it retirement if you want, but let's be honest, this was an escape. A quick exit before things got uglier. A silent nod to the reality she couldn't outrun. The league wasn't about her anymore. It was about Clark, Angel Reese, and a new generation of players who weren't interested in carrying the baggage of old drama. And if you think the WNBA didn't love this changing of the guard, think again. Griner didn't just lose her spot. She lost the narrative. She went from being the league's powerhouse to its problem, from dunk contest to damage control, from locker room leader to league liability. And while she may have tried to rewrite her exit with a public apology and some social media rebranding, the truth is out there, and it's not flattering. So what does it say when one of the league's most dominant players exits not with cheers, but with controversy? And what does it mean for a league that's clearly drawing a line between its past and its future? Because Brittney Griner didn't just walk off the court, she was pushed off it. And you better believe the WNBA isn't looking back. Brittney Griner's WNBA career didn't end with a farewell tour or a tearful jersey retirement ceremony. It ended with a headline, a meltdown, a moment that flipped the entire conversation around her legacy, and not in a way fans hoped. Once untouchable, a force of nature on the court, Griner's name used to be synonymous with dominance. She was the one throwing down dunks, breaking barriers, and drawing crowds. But by the end, she was benched, sidestepped, and finally, shoved out by a league more than ready to move on. Not just from her game, but from the controversy that consumed it. Because Brittney Griner didn't just fade out, she combusted. It all started with a noise that had been building quietly for months. Her performance was slowing down. Her role on the team was shrinking. Younger players were outpacing her, literally. As the WNBA sped up, more threes, quicker rotations, a perimeter-first game, Griner's style became outdated. The league she once ruled was evolving right under her, and she wasn't keeping up. Then Caitlin Clark showed up. Clark wasn't just a new face. She was the face. The buzz around her arrival was nuclear. Her college games were already viral sensations, and when she stepped onto a WNBA court, the cameras followed. She was a walking headline, precise, flashy, and marketable in a way that had executives drooling. Griner, now in the twilight of her career, wasn't just losing minutes. She was losing the spotlight. That spotlight didn't dim quietly. The boiling point came during a game that should have been just another regular season matchup, but turned into a defining moment. Caught on tape mid-game, Griner unleashed a racially charged tirade aimed directly at Clark. Yes, racial slurs, directed at the league's new golden girl. The footage exploded online. It wasn't just shocking. It was impossible to ignore. What followed was fast, brutal, and public. The backlash was immediate. Media outlets condemned it. Fans turned on her. Sponsors ghosted. The league tried to downplay it first, but the damage was already done. Then came the cherry on top. A physical altercation during the same game. Griner went after Clark. Shoving, yelling. The whole meltdown captured in crystal clear HD. Suddenly, the league's former star was a PR nightmare. What was supposed to be the twilight of a decorated career turned into a live-wire controversy. Griner was benched, and not long after that, she announced her retirement. No ceremony. No thank you for everything. Just gone. It felt less like a goodbye and more like an escape route. The apology to Clark came days later. Clearly a damage control move. It was quiet, restrained, and barely picked up any traction. By that point, no one was buying a redemption arc. Fans saw it for what it was, a last-ditch effort to soften the legacy damage. But the narrative had already shifted. Griner wasn't exiting on her own terms. She was being pushed out. And Clark? She didn't even flinch. She stayed focused, kept playing, and, like clockwork, kept winning. Her rise only got louder. More endorsements, more media coverage, and more fans packing stadiums. While Griner's name became associated with drama, Clark's became the poster child for the league's future. The WNBA saw what was happening and leaned all the way in. Younger stars like Clark and Angel Reese were the ticket to a rebrand. They brought a new energy, a fresh identity. They were social media savvy, marketable, and, most importantly, unproblematic. The league, hungry to grow its audience, knew exactly what it had to do: distance itself from the veteran drama and pivot to the next generation. So while Griner tried to rehab her image with some low-key Twitch streaming and soft press appearances, the league was busy hyping the new wave. And the contrast couldn't have been more stark. Griner had spent years building her legacy on raw talent and unapologetic presence. But when the controversy hit, there was no goodwill reservoir deep enough to save her. The racial slurs, the physical aggression, the bitterness, it rewrote everything. Suddenly, her career wasn't remembered for the dunks or gold medals. It was remembered for that moment. And if there's one thing today's sports world doesn't forgive easily, it's a viral meltdown tied to race. Fans weren't the only ones taking notes. So was the league's front office. The WNBA had been itching to pivot to a younger, faster, cleaner brand. Griner's implosion gave them a reason and a warning. Her story became a symbol of what happens when you don't adapt. When you let resentment drive your last plays. When you don't know when to step back. Griner's retirement wasn't a celebration of a storied career. It was a cautionary tale, whispered behind closed doors. Don't let this be you. The bitter part? She didn't have to go out like this. She could have leaned into mentorship, passed the torch gracefully, used her platform to uplift rather than tear down. But instead, she chose confrontation, and the league chose to move on without her. Now, every mention of Griner's name comes with an asterisk, not because of her game, but because of how it ended. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is everywhere. Jerseys flying off shelves, brands lining up, TV ratings through the roof. She's not just a player, she's the future. And she's carrying the league into a new era where marketability, media control, and clean narratives matter just as much as stats. The contrast between the two couldn't be louder. Griner represents the old guard, gritty, dominant, but resistant to change. Clark is the evolution, sharp, media-ready, and a walking highlight reel. The league made its choice. And Griner's story got filed under what not to do. It's not just sports, it's survival. In a league that's fighting for attention, every star matters, every controversy costs, and every meltdown leaves a mark. The WNBA didn't just move past Griner, they needed to. So what's left of the legacy? A player who redefined post-play, shattered expectations, and flew higher than anyone thought possible, but who crashed just as hard. A career that should have ended in applause, but ended in apology. Her final act wasn't a fadeaway jumper. It was a headline that read, Brittney Griner apologizes to Caitlin Clark. And that's what people will remember. Griner's fall is now part of WNBA history. Not for her stats, but for her misstep. For the moment she let rivalry and resentment win. And for how quickly the game moved on without her. As for the league, it's full steam ahead. New stars, new fans, new identity, no room for baggage. So what's the takeaway? Adapt or get benched. Grow with the league or get left behind. Because in the WNBA, the spotlight doesn't wait. And when it turns fast. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Was Griner's downfall inevitable? And do you think the league handled it right? Hit that subscribe button for more drama, breakdowns, and the stories behind the meltdowns. Because in this league, the game might end, but the chaos never does. You'd think someone with Brittney Griner's resume would have been untouchable. Multiple all-star appearances, gold medals, the first woman to dunk in college, and make it look routine. She was that player, the one opponents schemed for, and fans showed up just to witness. Her presence was massive, not just on the court, but in the broader cultural conversation. She wasn't just dominant. She was disruptive in the best way. But dominance doesn't last forever, and Griner didn't just lose her edge. She lost the room. Let's be real. Athletes slow down. That part is normal. Inevitable, even. But what made Griner's fall so jaw-dropping wasn't just that her game dipped. It's how she handled the shift. The grace that other aging stars manage to summon. When it's time to pass the baton, Griner fumbled that handoff like it was greased. Instead of mentoring, she grew defensive. Instead of embracing change, she pushed back. And when the league started giving more shine to the rising stars, Clark, Reese, Buchers, even younger teammates, Griner didn't pivot. She snapped. There's a very particular type of unraveling that happens when an athlete can feel the torch being taken, not handed, taken. The resentment builds, the spotlight dims, and every play starts feeling like a test you're failing in real time. That's where Griner was living by the end. Every missed shot felt heavier. Every cheer for Clark sounded louder. And then she broke. The footage didn't lie. A mic'd up moment turned grenade. Racial slurs directed at Clark mid-game. Loud enough to get picked up. Sharp enough to make even her defenders fall silent. You didn't need to be a lip reader to catch what was said. And you didn't need a PR team to know this was going to blow up. The backlash wasn't just public. It was instant. Former fans pulled support overnight. Media headlines were brutal. Fellow players, some of whom had once looked up to her, started distancing themselves. There was no rallying cry, no spin, just silence. And when the league finally acknowledged it, it was vague statements and behind-the-scenes damage control. But even that wasn't enough. Then came the shove. That physical altercation with Clark sealed it. Because if the slurs could have maybe been brushed off as heat of the moment, they shouldn't. But you know how these things go. The physical aggression screamed bitterness. Clark didn't even retaliate. She didn't need to. The cameras caught everything. And just like that, Griner wasn't a victim of ageism or league politics anymore. She was the villain, and she knew it. Her sudden retirement, dropped on a random weekday like it was just another press release, had the energy of someone pulling a fire alarm just to get out of the building. It wasn't farewell. It was an evacuation. No press conference. No jersey swap. No celebratory "thank you for everything" montage. Just a one-paragraph announcement, followed by silence. Then, a few days later, the apology. Let's not sugarcoat it. It felt calculated. The kind of PR-written statement that checks all the boxes without actually saying much. She regretted her words. She respected Caitlin as a competitor, and she needed to take time for reflection. Right? Because nothing says reflection like trying to pivot into Twitch, streaming the week after. The thing is, the apology didn't work. Not because it wasn't sincere, we'll never know if it was, but because it came after the league had already moved on. The timing made it feel like a cleanup job, not a reckoning. By the time she said sorry, Clark had already been crowned the unofficial queen of the league. Her games were trending on every platform. She was on the front of cereal boxes, for crying out loud. And while Griner was quietly exiting stage left, the WNBA was rewriting the entire narrative around its future, with Clark, Reese, and others leading the charge. There was no more room for legacy drama. No time for redemption arcs that would muddy the branding. And that's the brutal truth. The WNBA is in a transition era, and it's not just about who plays better. It's about who sells better, who the fans connect with, who the media can market without holding their breath. Griner had once been that player. Bold, brash, unapologetic. But the league wasn't trying to market rage anymore. It was selling resilience. So when Griner tried to reposition herself, as a streamer, as a commentator, as whatever, fans saw through it. It felt like rebranding, not growth. She didn't disappear out of humility. She disappeared because there was no other option. And let's not forget the timing. Griner had just been benched. Not for one game. Repeatedly. Coaches were making lineup choices that made it clear she was no longer essential. Her minutes were shrinking, and her impact on the court wasn't enough to justify the baggage anymore. That's the part that stings. Because whether you liked her or not, Brittney Griner was a defining player. For years. And watching her spiral out of the league, not with a bang, but with a string of bad headlines, wasn't just disappointing. It was sad. But here's the flip side. Her story is now the example. Across locker rooms, rookies and vets alike are whispering about it. Don't lose your composure. Don't go after the rising stars. Don't let the resentment build. Because once the fans flip, there's no going back. And Clark? She didn't even have to say anything. She let the moment speak for itself. She didn't go on a press tour. She didn't post subtweets. She just kept playing, kept winning, and let the league elevate her naturally. And now, she's untouchable. So now we're living in a WNBA that doesn't look like the one Griner came up in. It's faster, younger, louder. It's more online, more accessible, and more brand-driven than ever. And the veterans who can't keep up, whether on the court or off it, are being pushed to margins. Griner didn't just get old. She got outplayed, outmarketed, and outclassed in the media war. And maybe, just maybe, she knew that was coming. Maybe the public meltdown was a symptom, not a cause. Maybe she saw the writing on the wall and cracked under the pressure. Does that excuse what she said and did? No, not even close. But it does explain the bitterness. Because when you build a legacy over a decade, it's hard to watch it evaporate in one viral clip. But that's the new game. It's not just about stats anymore. It's about perception, personality, poise. Griner's legacy now lives in 2 chapters. Chapter 1, groundbreaking, dominant, impossible to ignore. Chapter 2, combative, controversial, quietly erased. And Clark? She's writing Chapter 1 right now, with endorsements, record-breaking attendance, and a league that's bending over backwards to keep her in the spotlight. There's no mistaking the symbolism here. One player exits in disgrace. Another rises with grace. And the WNBA's message is loud and clear. Evolve or you're out. So here we are, looking at the wreckage of a career that could have ended with respect, but instead ended with regret. And if you're a vet watching all this unfold from the sidelines, the warning couldn't be louder. This is what happens when you don't make peace with the next generation. Brittney Griner, the same woman who once made headlines for saving Team USA's gold medal chances, who stood taller, literally and figuratively, than almost anyone in women's basketball, is now the cautionary tale no one wanted to tell. And Caitlin Clark? She didn't just replace her. She erased her. That's the kind of dramatic flip we usually see in movies. But this wasn't scripted. This was real-time, real stakes, and real consequences. The kind of fall from grace that doesn't just shake up a career. It reshapes the league. Let's not downplay it. Griner wasn't just another player past her prime. She was a WNBA. For years, she was the viral moment, the highlight reel, the representation. When the league needed someone to anchor its image, Griner was it. She was unapologetic, polarizing, and above all, dominant. She was part of the heartbeat of the WNBA's identity during a time when it was still clawing for mainstream recognition. But here's the uncomfortable truth no one wants to say out loud. The same qualities that made her magnetic during her peak became a liability as the league shifted gears. The outspokenness, subtly seen as combative. The aggression, viewed as volatile. The confidence, rebranded as resentment. And once that narrative flips, There's no going back. You think the league wants to be associated with racial slurs caught on live mics in the middle of a game? You think the WNBA is trying to grow its fan base by defending an aging star swinging on the new face of the sport? Absolutely not. That's not branding. That's a PR fire. The second that video hit social media, Griner's image wasn't just cracked, it was shattered. And what did the league do? They didn't call a press conference. They didn't hold a mediation. They didn't even try to smooth things over. They let her walk. Actually, let's be real, they let her leave herself. Because that's the trick here. The league never had to officially suspend her, discipline her, or force her out. They made it clear enough that she was no longer part of the plan, and Griner did the rest. The retirement announcement wasn't a mic drop. It was a white flag. And what's worse, it didn't even trend for more than a few hours. Because Clark was too busy dropping double-doubles and drawing sellout crowds. Angel Reese was making headlines for buzzer beaters and rookie beefs. The WNBA had already moved on, and it didn't need Griner to tell that story anymore. So when she issued that quiet apology, it wasn't even about Clark anymore. It was about trying to salvage the last threads of the legacy. But the damage was already done. There's a brutal irony to the whole thing. Griner, who once fought so hard for visibility, for herself, for the league, for women's basketball as a whole, became the person the league no longer wanted to see. And now, she's a ghost of a different era. The league is doing press tours with Caitlin Clark, not Griner. They're putting Reese on billboards, not commemorating the past. This isn't a throwback league anymore. It's forward only. And that's where the conversation shifts from just one player's downfall to something bigger. Because Brittney Griner isn't the only vet who's had to watch the game pass them by. She's just the loudest example of what happens when you don't adapt. You want to know what the real difference was between Griner and Clark? It wasn't talent. It wasn't even age. It was control of the narrative. Clark knew how to protect her brand, how to let the game speak, how to let the league do the heavy lifting while she stayed clean and quiet in the media storm. Griner? She walked straight into the controversy and poured gasoline on it. And now she's out. Not with a statue. Not with a Hall of Fame ceremony. Not with a hero's goodbye. With silence. Let's not pretend this was a natural ending. Let's not pretend she left on her own terms. The truth is, the league saw a future without her, and she gave them every excuse to move forward. Now she's trying to pivot to streaming, maybe hoping fans will follow her off the court. But the reality is harsh. Audiences don't stick around for apologies. They stick around for wins. And Clark is still collecting those in real time. That's the hardest pill to swallow. Not just that Griner fell, but that no one caught her. Because when your legacy becomes a liability, the same league you helped build will lock the doors and change the locks behind you. It's not personal, it's business. And in that business, relevance is a currency. Clark is cashing in. Griner's credit got revoked. So where does that leave us? Looking at a league that's evolving fast. No time for grudges. No patience for scandal. And definitely no space for players who can't read the room. Griner's story isn't just about a meltdown. It's about what happens when an icon misreads a moment, when emotion overrides discipline, when legacy becomes ego, and when someone who wants to find a lead becomes a face of what it's trying to leave behind. And if you're a veteran watching from the sidelines, the message is loud and clear. Get with the program or get out of the way. Because this new era, it's built on highlight reels, media discipline, and an audience that's not here for the mess. So yeah, Brittney Griner apologized. But by the time she said the words, the cameras were already off, and the league already on to the next chapter. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Was this a fall from grace or a long time coming? Did the league fail her, or did she fail herself? And if you're here for the next meltdown, the next plot twist, or the next legacy to get rewritten, make sure you're subscribed. Because in the world of sports drama, redemption arcs are rare. But receipts are forever.